Hello, I'm Russell Brooks. This is number 0888, the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder, and it comes to you right now.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
Now, it's time for an eclectic mix of interviews and some of the oddest news stories you'll ever hear. It's the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder.
Hey there, hi there, ho there. Peter Anthony Holder here with you, and yes, this is indeed another edition of the Stuff File program, number 0888. And coming up on this edition of the Stuff File program, you'll meet Tom Vander Well, who is the President and CEO of Intelligentics, a customer experience research and training firm. He's also the author of This Call May Be Monitored: What Eavesdropping on Corporate America Taught Me About Business and Life. Is monitoring calls really eavesdropping?
It is eavesdropping. One of the stories, and this is a true story, we happened to pull up this phone call. It was a person, a representative for the company that was on their company phone, but they made a personal call to set up their drug business. The recording basically captured them creating an illegal drug business, which then put us in the position of having to report this, and I got to talk to the FBI. It's the one time in my life I got to talk to the FBI.
Ventriloquist April Brucker is also the author of 250 Years of American Ventriloquism: How Ventriloquism Influenced American Culture. It seems that puppets get away with everything.
That's what makes ventriloquism so unique, is puppets get away with everything. That's why Avenue Q was popular, is puppets got away with everything. Even Jeff Dunham and Aquamed, puppets get away with everything. And I always say, when I speak about Mae Wilson, is April Brucker's a dork, okay? I'm a dork. I spilled coffee on myself before this interview. You should have seen me. Mae Wilson is flawlessly cool. If I did half the things Mae Wilson did, I would probably be canceled so quickly. But she gets away with it because she's a puppet.
Stuart Nulman is in with another edition of Book Banter.
Hi, I'm Stuart Nulman, and Book Banter looks at the making of the comedy classic It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, and find out it was just as maddening behind the camera as it was in front of it. Let's go back to 1963 and join the rat race to Santa Rosita later on the Stuff File program.
And there's lots and lots of Stuff File news, dad joke theater, Sir Dudley's Poetry Corner, a morning shower thought, and of course, an idiot of the day. The guest slater, the person who told you this was show number 0888, is Russell Brooks, an author and friend who has been on several times on the show. He has a new thriller coming out on November 30th called The Cadmus Imperative, and we will have him on soon to talk about it. In the meantime, you can see the trailer of the book now, which is in this week's website and newsletter. Thank you very much, Russell, for doing the guest slate on this edition of the Stuff File program, a show that is listener-supported, fan-funded radio that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Well, let's get right to the stuff. A 23-year-old traveler was arrested at Tokyo's Haneda Airport after customs officials discovered approximately 200 lizards concealed inside 22 pairs of socks within his luggage. Daniel Isaac Velasco Baltazar had arrived from South Korea when the reptiles were found. One animal was already dead upon discovery. The haul included 9 Mexican alligator lizards, a protected endangered species subject to strict international trade regulations. Baltazar allegedly told investigators he purchased the lizards in Mexico for roughly $3.50 to $4.70 each, while some species can sell for around $630 in Japan. Said one security employee, "If there's a market for it, people will attempt to smuggle it. It happens more frequently than any of us would like." Wow. If a $4 lizard goes for over $600 in Japan, Could you imagine what the Japanese would pay for an iconic spokesperson lizard? The price would go through the roof. Oh, you might scoff, but even an iconic spokesperson lizard agrees with me. Go ahead, little green guy. Tell the audience why.
I'll tell you why. Because people trust advertising icons. Some bloke tells you to go to geico.com and you're like, really? And just who might you be? But a gecko, he can be trusted.
Told you so. An 8-month-old polar bear cub at Japan's Oga Aquarium has captured hearts online with his quirky fixation on traffic cones. Momota has been observed sticking his head inside the bright orange cones, stacking them, and hauling them back to his den. His mother, however, appears far less entertained, particularly when he charges at her wearing one on his head. Yeah, I've been to parties like that in college. Momota's mom occasionally tries removing the cones, but Momota always returns to his unusual pastime. A visitor filmed the cub at 5 months old, successfully balancing 4 cones over his head. He said, "I was surprised and amused to see such a small cub manage to put 4 cones over his head. It was very cute and funny to watch, and his playful and mischievous personality really came through." Yeah, I've seen the video. Very funny, but again, very collegiate. A runaway sheep in Ludinghausen, Germany, had quite the adventure after escaping its pasture and wandering onto bus company RVM's property. The sheep climbed aboard an unlocked parked bus and was discovered by the driver returning to check for litter. While waiting for its owner to arrive, the sheep was taken through the facility's bus-sized car wash. Police helped contact owner Stephen Neighbor, who was identified through a plastic ear tag. No, not on Neighbor, on the sheep. Anyway, Neighbor safely loaded the sheep into a trailer and brought it home. The animal remained calm throughout the ordeal. RVM spokesperson Tino Nitsch said employees were delighted by their unexpected passenger, and the sheep will be featured in the company's next employee magazine issue. Gee, I don't know if they should be rewarding the sheep by being in the next employee magazine issue. I don't think you should reward bad behavior. A Wired reporter, no, not a Wired reporter, but a reporter from the magazine Wired. Okay. A Wired reporter discovered McDonald's maintains an extensive surveillance profile on its repeat customers.
Tell me, what does it mean? At McDonald's it's clean.
Reese Rogers, a California resident, requested his data through McDonald's Privacy Rights Center and received a 515-page file. The document contained past orders, loyalty points, and Monopoly sweepstakes codes. McDonald's feeds this data into predictive algorithms, estimating how often a customer will visit and their total predicted spending value. I'm loving it. For comparison, 515 pages matches the FBI's profile on John Lennon. Jeff Chester, executive director at the Center for Digital Democracy, told Wired, McDonald's secret sauce is really commercial surveillance.
At McDonald's, we do it all for you.
No, you do it all for you. California law grants residents the right to request personal data held by private companies. The revelation comes 1 year after McDonald's virtual hiring assistant leaked personal details of 64 million job applicants. Apparently, Big Ronald is keeping an eye on you.
So get up and get away to McDonald's, McDonald's. McDonald!
When exactly is that break coming? Anyway, let's get to our first guest here on this edition of the Stuff All program, shall we? Tom Vander Well is the president and CEO of Intelligentics, a customer experience research and training firm. He is also the author of This Call May Be Monitored: What Eavesdropping on Corporate America Taught Me About Business and Life. He joins us from Iowa via Riverside.com. Hi, Tom.
Michael, so good to be with you today.
Good to have you on the program. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Oh my gosh, I'm honored to be on the show.
It almost sounds like you're Toto pulling away the curtain on The Wizard of Oz. Is this something that in your business you're supposed to share with us?
Yes, well, it's funny because I tell people what I've done for a living, and people are like going, "Oh my gosh, I hear, you call anywhere and you hear this call may be monitored," and they're like, "Does anybody actually listen?" Nobody knows anything about it. And I'm like, "Oh no, I've listened to over 100,000 phone calls in my career, and some people really do."
100,000 phone calls over the years. That sounds like doing the research on a focus group.
Oh my gosh. Well, and if you had told me like in high school that this is what I was going to do, and in fact, I talk about it in my book, like this is like the last thing on earth I would have wanted to do. If my high school counselor had said, "Oh, well, you need to, analyze phone calls for a living," I would have said, "Give me a therapist and hand me a prescription for antidepressants," because it sounds like a recipe for disaster. But you know what? It ended up being kind of like the perfect thing for me, and I loved my career.
You say it's the farthest thing away from what you thought you were going to do, but you're also the president and CEO of this company, so you excelled.
Yes. I mean, I started in 1994. That's when I was hired, and now I own the company. And so it's been a successful career. But the reality is I still analyze calls all the time. I'm still actively involved with clients. I analyze calls. I coach people. And so it's not like, oh, I did this for a while and then I became the CEO and now I don't do it anymore. It's still very much a part of what I do all the time.
I've always wanted to know something about the calls when they are being monitored. Are they being monitored the first time that a representative is on the line with you, or are you being monitored while you're on hold waiting for that representative?
It all depends on the particular recording software. And there are different ones out there and they handle the recording differently. But yes, I mean, I have heard, we have had software, and again, we're client agnostic. So here at Intelligentics, I mean, we've worked with all sorts of companies, large and small, all over, global companies, every kind of industry, every kind, from sales to customer service to accounting to billing to you name it. I've listened to it all. And so there have been situations where I'll be listening and the agent will be on hold. They're waiting for the customer and they'll actually talk to me. "Tom, are you listening? Hello, Tom, are you monitoring this call?" And I've had people talk to me on hold. I've had all sorts of things happen.
You get this recording that says this may be monitored for quality control. So what are you looking at the most? Are you looking at sometimes the argumentative style in which the customer is speaking to the representative? Or are you looking at the representative to try and tone that down? In other words, not arguing with the customer?
Well, yeah, and the answer is yes. I mean, it's everything. And so when our company comes in and we're listening to the calls, number one, we listen methodically from the customer's perspective, from the customer's point of view. So one of the things that we do typically prior to even begin to listen to the calls is we will survey a client's customers. So we've identified statistically from listening to the customers, this is what satisfies them. This is what drives their satisfaction. So when we listen to the phone calls, we have an entire basically checklist of behaviors that we can marry to those customers' expectations. So we can and that literally, yes, courtesy and friendliness is a key driver of the customer satisfaction. So we're going to listen for you to use a please or a thank you when you ask them for their account number, or we're going to listen for you to use their name conversationally at least once. And so everything that we're listening for is connected back to what we know their customers want. And then after we've done the analysis, there is typically coaching or training that's customized based on, okay, sit down with the agent, and I've worked with thousands and thousands of agents in my career, and sit down and go, okay, this is what we heard, and here's the opportunity to improve. And sometimes it is. This customer was angry and went off, and there's a better way to handle it. So I use the example, you can't watch a football game or a baseball game and not see, the quarterback immediately goes back to the bench and starts looking at the video. It's the same thing. Let's go back to the recording and let's break down what happened. And let's talk about where you had opportunities to de-escalate this customer.
I try to be nice when a representative comes on the line, because I realize that they're probably not being paid very well, and they're getting a lot of grief. So I try to be as nice as I possibly can. But
you should, and good for you. I'm proud of you.
But there's a but here. There is a situation nowadays where AI is initiating the call and trying to pigeonhole you in a particular area before a representative comes on the line.
Yes.
This is annoying. And I spend most of my time yelling, representative. And I'm already in a bad mood when a human being comes on the line.
Well, I have a colleague, and you learn the tricks of the trade. So one of the things is that in some situations, saying representative isn't work, but what does work is swearing. So I actually have a colleague that works right down the hall, and I will hear this colleague who normally doesn't swear in real life start screaming obscenities into the phone, and I know they're trying to get past the AI.
Well, that would be a plan, except for the fact that I don't swear. So it's difficult for me.
Yes, I got it.
Who exactly did you write the book for, by the way?
I really wrote it for, there's two pieces to it. And the subtitle is What Eavesdropping on Corporate America Taught Me About Business and Life. Because one of the things that, and I talk about in the book, I thought I was going to go into pastoral ministry. That's the direction that I thought my life was going to go. And so I have this care about, I love people, and I love helping people, and I love helping people with life. So one of the things that surprised me in my career is that, yes, I learned a lot about business from listening to these phone calls. And I've helped a lot of businesses create a culture of service excellence and improve their customer satisfaction and loyalty and retention. But at the same time, what surprised me is that many of the things that I learned about business also were true about life. And so in the book, I talk about some of the things that I've learned about from my career that actually helped me be a better husband and father and friend, and because they're just life principles, not just business principles. And so one of the biggest compliments I've had is a gal who said, Tom, I read the book just to be nice because I know you and you're my friend, but she's like, I own a hair salon, and corporate America is not my thing, and I just kind of figured that I would do this just to be kind to you and read it because I'm interested. And she said, oh my gosh, number one, there were so many great stories that I loved. She goes, I couldn't stop turning the pages. And she said, you know what? Because I learned so much that I can apply to my life, to my relationships, and even to my little hair salon. And so that was a huge compliment for me, because that's what I wanted. I wanted it to be a book that anybody could pick up and get something from.
Well, what kind of response have you got from either the business person or the layman?
I've gotten great comments from both. I think the business person has been pleasantly surprised that this is more than just business, and that shocked them and surprised them because they weren't expecting that. The layperson who's reading it like going, well, I'm not sure that this is a business book for me, has been most surprised again that I share a lot of stories. I share a lot of fun anecdotes from my experiences over 30 years, and they've just found it pleasant and entertaining.
One quick question. The subtitle of the book, What Eavesdropping on Corporate America Taught Me About Business and Life. Did you decide whether it could be listening as opposed to eavesdropping? And why did you use that particular word? Because it has a negative connotation.
You know, it was in thinking about it, it was kind of the reality is that when you do the call monitoring, you kind of are eavesdropping because you're a third party. Neither the representative nor the customer knows necessarily that anybody's going, they've been warned that somebody may listen to it, but they don't necessarily know that somebody is listening to it. And you really are at that point kind of eavesdropping in on what's taking place. And sometimes, I talk about this in the book, sometimes it is eavesdropping. You hear things that aren't expected. One of the stories, and this is a true story, we happened to pull up this phone call, and it was a representative for the company that was on their company phone, but they made a personal call to set up their drug business. So the recording basically captured them creating an illegal drug business, which then put us in the position of having to report this. And I got to talk to the FBI. It's the one time in my life I got to talk to the FBI. And it's fascinating because they signed a paper saying, hey, I know my calls might be recorded. So sometimes that happens.
I guess no matter how many times you say this call may be monitored, people on both sides tend to forget it.
That's exactly right. It happens.
Well, congratulations on the book. This call may be monitored. And thank you very, very much for taking the time to be on the program with us.
Again, it's been a pleasure and an honor to be on the program, and I wish you and your audience all the best.
Tom Vander Well, President and CEO of Intelligentics and the author of This Call May Be Monitored, What Eavesdropping on Corporate America Taught Me About Business and Life. You can go to our website at thestuffile.com, check out the show number for this program, which is show number 0888, and you'll find the link to Tom's website, plus links to either Amazon.com or Amazon.ca, where you can order his book directly. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
And now, Dad Joke Theater.
I hate to brag, but the other day I finished a jigsaw puzzle in just a matter of hours. And on the box, it said 2 to 4 years.
Join us again for another Stuff File program, Dad Joke Theater.
There's still more guests, more news, and an idiot of the day coming your way on the Stuff File program. Stay tuned. The Stuff File program is a listener-supported, fan-funded radio show that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Sign up and find out about our rewards program. Being a patron doesn't have to be a long-term commitment. There's absolutely no obligation. You could join today and end whenever you'd like. But the time we have your support would be so greatly appreciated. We'd also love to hear your thoughts about the show and even your ideas for rewards. Join us for the ride. Join us at patreon.com/thestufffileprogram program.
I'm standing here with my head held high. For Canada. Hi, Brian Williams here. You know, over the years, I have been fortunate to work so many big international sporting events in so many different countries. And regardless of the country, the reaction was the same. Respect and admiration for Canadians and Canada. Shop as if your country depends on it. Keep your money in Canada for Canada.
Available on Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and just about every other way you stream audio. This is the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder. It's radio that's everywhere you want to be, and some places you don't.
And still to come on the program, we'll talk to ventriloquist April Brucker, plus Stuart Nulman is along with another edition of Book Banter. There is a Sir Dudley's Poetry Corner coming your way, a morning shower thought, and of course an idiot of the day, but I've got much more in Stuff File News right here, right now. An Auckland woman who died and was resuscitated in a supermarket parking lot received an $80 fine days later. The 54-year-old collapsed at New World Arua on July 26th. An unidentified bystander performed chest compressions after finding no pulse, saving her life before paramedics arrived. Her father, Keith Wilkinson, said paramedics confirmed her heart had stopped and she was technically dead. Her car remained in the lot for 5.5 hours. Parking company Smart Compliance Management initially reduced the fine to $30 rather than waiving it. The family found the response offensive. New World Arua owner-operator Steve McLean intervened, reimbursed the fee, and called the parking rules to be applied with common sense. Smart Compliance has since apologized. Smart Compliance should probably change their name.
Wonderful stories enter our stores every day. Find your wonderful New World.
Yeah, but she never got to the store. She was in the parking lot. Anyway. Closer to home, a British Columbia couple who lost their home in the Bradley Creek wildfire faced an unexpected battle with Rogers Communications over service cancellation fees. Greg Brown and his wife evacuated on August the 1st as the fire swept through their community near Okanagan Lake, destroying their home. When his wife called to cancel their cable and internet, Rogers initially demanded a $660 disconnection fee or $10 monthly to suspend the account. But after CTV News contacted Rogers, the company acknowledged a waiver policy existed for such situations and apologized, saying the fee should never have been applied. Rogers subsequently called the Browns directly, waiving all cancellation and equipment fees. Said Brown, "I don't want this to happen to anybody else." You know, it should be noted that CTV is owned by Bell Media, and also Bell Media and Rogers have the two largest phone companies in Canada and the two largest internet service providers in the country. So I'm just curious as to when the Browns get on their feet, who are they going to go with?
The Stuff File program presents asinine situations that make you want to scream into a pillow.
This time around, we take you to Shreveport, Louisiana. A late-night run for donuts, honey buns, pound cake, and a fountain drink ended up costing one man a lot more than the mere $19.88 that he owed. The Shreveport Police Department said the story began around 12:34 a.m. on August 11th, when officers responded to a Circle K outlet. A store clerk reported that a man selected the aforementioned items and walked out without paying. An officer searched the surrounding area, but initially couldn't find the man. A short time later, a man matching the description returned to the Circle K while police were still nearby. Officers detained him and identified him as 18-year-old John Alex Jordan. During the investigation, officers linked Jordan to the recent burglary of the Elks Lodge, where multiple items were reported stolen. He was subsequently charged in connection with that burglary. It was also discovered that he had an outstanding theft warrant stemming from a separate case. Jordan faced 1 count of theft and 1 count of simple burglary, along with the previously outstanding theft warrant. In a Facebook post, the police department had some fun with his decision to return to the store. They wrote about the arrest. Apparently, returning to the scene really does work, just not in the way that he probably hoped. In his mugshot, his face does look beaten and battered. Now I'm wondering, where were the donuts when he was arrested?
This has been the Stuff File program, Asinine Situations that Make You Want to Scream into a Pillow.
And now, this.
The Stuff File presents Sir Dudley Piddly Havisham Sedgwick Smythe's Poetry Corner.
A lovely young girl named Roslyn had a smile that could light up a foggy spin. With a laugh and a cheer, she made trouble disappear and turned every ending to a win.
And let's get to our next guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program, shall we? April Brucker is a ventriloquist who is the author of several books. Her latest one is called 250 Years of American Ventriloquism, How Ventriloquism Influenced American Culture. April joins us from Las Vegas via Riverside.com. Hi, April.
How are you? It's hot here. How's the weather where you're at?
Pretty sticky here, too, although as I would assume in Vegas, it's a dry heat.
The dry heat. But, you're calling me from Montreal, so that means you're calling me from the future. How's the future?
That's pretty good. You want me to pick a lotto ticket for you?
Do it, please.
So tell us about the book, 250 Years of American Ventriloquism. What made you decide to write this particular book?
Well, you see, American ventriloquism had always been preserved in newspaper articles, interviews, show programs, etc., but no one had ever cataloged the history. And I'm a professional ventriloquist, not an accredited historian, but also I have an MFA in creative writing and screenwriting from Antioch. And anytime somebody writes a book, a publisher always asks, why should it be written and why should it be written by you? And I know that you're in Canada, but the United States, was turning 250 years old this year. And I thought, what better way to do this? And my manager had suggested that I do this. So last year I did my research. January 1st comes, clank, clank, clank. I started to write.
250 years of America. How early was ventriloquism introduced to America?
Well, actually, ventriloquism came over on the slave ships. We don't get an A for this in the United States, but ventriloquism was part of an African tradition where they spoke to the dead because they believed that the dead lived in the gut. And so it was part of a religious ceremony. And so when the slaves came to the New World, the pagan religions were outlawed and it lived on in voodoo. And you still see ventriloquism to some respect in voodoo. But the irony is the Cotton Mathers, the Increase Mathers, all the lawmakers in the 13 colonies going to the Harvard, Yale, and Princeton were learning about the Oracle of Delphi, who was also a ventriloquist. And for those of you that don't know, in ancient Greece, people would go to the Oracle. She would answer their questions and throw her voice. Well, she could play dirty jokes. Just ask Oedipus Rex. So, while they were outlawing ventriloquism as a part of the African religious practices, they were translating the Oracle of Delphi and Oedipus Rex in Greek and Latin. So, in the United States and around the world, ventriloquism was always destined to be in comedy because it was irony.
Now, is this something that you already knew, or was this something that you researched for this particular book?
I knew a little bit because I'm a big writer, but I also researched it for this book. And the history of ventriloquism ran very deep in the United States. And I learned that I was a small part of a much bigger story. Like, for instance, our first ventriloquist comedy headlining celebrity superstar in the United States, Richard Potter, was also black, and he toured in the 1810s and 1820s while slavery was still legal, and he toured the North and the South and packed the house. And for those of you that know Hollywood and movies and stuff, he was the basis for the character of Samuel Peyton of Peyton Place, and he's buried in Andover, New Hampshire.
When you researched this book, were you surprised, even though with your extensive knowledge in ventriloquism and having been a ventriloquist and currently are a ventriloquist, were you surprised by anything you discovered while researching this book?
Oh, absolutely. I discovered ventriloquism had always existed. Whether it was in early America, it had always been a part of American culture. Whether it was the medicine shows, vaudeville, radio, television, etc., it had always been a part of the framework, and it had always been at the cornerstone of every civil rights movement in America. Whether it was black civil rights with Willie Tyler and Lester, women's rights with Sherry Lewis and Lamb Chop, LGBTQ rights with Wayland and Madam, ventriloquism had always been there.
How did you get into ventriloquism in the first place? When did it start for you, and what was your first performance?
I got into ventriloquism as a 13-year-old in Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. It's right outside of Pittsburgh. My family grew up without cable. My dad wanted the local sports channel so he could watch football, and that's American pigskin football for those of you listening. And so we suddenly got cable, and with 40 channels comes 40 times more commercials. Well, anyway, long story short, one Friday night, because Friday night is football night in Western Pennsylvania, my dad is changing the channels. There's an Edgar Bergen TV special. The rest of my family members try to talk like Ron Lucas, Jeff Dunham, etc., all the guys that were on there. I was the only one that could do it because I had my great-grandmother's sideways Irish smile. And that Christmas, I got a Groucho Marx figure under the tree. And my first show was at a nursing home, believe it or not, in the memory unit. And the memory unit is people with Alzheimer's. And it was a Groucho Marx puppet. So I come in. Some of the people there loved Groucho Marx and were finishing my jokes, and it was very charming. But one lady sees Groucho, grabs him, and says, "You're famous. My children put me here. Could you and my brothers get me out of here?"
Wow, that's deep.
So people have always treated puppets like they were real.
Now, you mentioned Edgar Bergen, and I said to you earlier before we started to do this that I'm a big fan of old-time radio, and I've always found it interesting, and I actually have a few albums of his. I always found it interesting that Edgar Bergen was a massive hit on the radio.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, long before we had influencers, Charlie McCarthy was getting fan mail. Charlie was a celebrity, and people were treating him like he was real. He was real. Mae Wilson, everybody. And I'm doing ventriloquism on the radio. I can't see your face, but I know that you're handsome. So what are you doing later, May? We're talking about Charlie McCarthy. Well, he owes me dinner, and he hasn't got yet. Do you want to buy me dinner? May, leave this poor man alone. Mae Wilson. But I was telling them about ventriloquism in America. Well, my people didn't build the rail lines, but we built the punch lines. Were your people at Lexington and Concord? No, it wasn't a paid gig. Mae Wilson. No, you didn't tell me what you were doing later. We were talking about Edgar Bergen on the radio. But yeah, he was massively successful on the radio. And because of his success, he set the gold standard for radio, and he brought the doubles act, or the comedy duo, to the radio and also to morning television, where it's still the gold standard. And for those of you that don't know, the doubles act is somebody like April that just sits there, and a wise, cracking, good-looking sidekick like yours truly. You mean Dummy May? It's Textile American to you.
I have a question for April, just April.
Okay, all right.
That is, when you first get into ventriloquism, how do you, for lack of a better term, find your voice? How do you, and I don't want to use the word dummy because that seems disparaging, but how do you find what's right for you when it comes to a partner?
Well, you just have to keep experimenting. And for me, sometimes my partners find me, sometimes I design them. But what you do is you keep experimenting with voices. And with Mae Wilson, for instance, my sister had a Charlie McCarthy doll she wasn't using, and I wanted a puppet that looked like me. I was 17, and my great aunt Helen, God rest her soul, did a Charlie McCarthy to look like me. And May was a combination of a girl that used to make fun of me in junior high, but also a friend of mine that was a cheerleader that wanted to marry a rich doctor that I adore. And so when I picked up May, the voice just came. Because sometimes your partner will just give you the voice. But other times, I have another character called Vinny Two Times, who's a mobster in witness protection. I experimented with several voices, and I was in an off-Broadway show in New York City called Murdered by the Mob, and it's the longest running off-Broadway dinner theater show in New York City. And I was like, oh my gosh, I know why he's a bad magician. He's in witness protection. And so the voice came then, but all of my characters have backstories, they have private moments, they have a favorite soft drink. I know how they shower. So everybody gets a complete bio, and that helps too, because as a ventriloquist, where you're kind of unique, is you are a doubles act. Because when we think of doubles act, we think of Abbott and Costello, but you design your partner, and your partner has to be as real as you are. And I know that that sounds crazy, but Hollywood leans into that quite a bit with scary movies. So
Well, let me ask you this question, and it's a psychological question. Is ventriloquism another side, another persona within your personality? Maybe even a personality that you don't necessarily want to expose, but you can do it through a partner?
well, that's an excellent question, because puppets have always been able to get away with anything. And that's what makes ventriloquism so unique, is puppets get away with everything. That's why Avenue Q was popular, is puppets got away with everything. Even Jeff Dunham and Aquamed, puppets get away with everything. And I always say when I speak about Mae Wilson, is April Brooker's a dork, okay? I'm a dork. I spilled coffee on myself before this interview. You should have seen me. Mae Wilson is flawlessly cool. If I did half the things Mae Wilson did, I would probably be canceled so quickly, but she gets away with it because she's a puppet. And that's why Muppets are so popular. But the other thing is that because puppets take on this realistic role, people are afraid of puppets. I was being interviewed for a well-known radio show in Australia, and the co-host, who's a very nice lady, freaked out when Mae Wilson started to speak.
Really?
Yeah, she freaked out. She had an anxiety attack, and I wanted to give her a hug. I'm like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "I want to talk to you and not her." Like, she thought that May was good. Like, I don't know. Like, but she'd seen too many scary movies. But Hollywood leans into that with The Twilight Zone, Tales from the Crypt, movies like Dead Silence, The Great Gabbo. So popophobia, and that's what it's called, is real. And it's next to chlorophobia, which is a fear of clowns.
So, how do you feel as a ventriloquist with all the depictions of ventriloquism in film?
Well, I think it's funny. Honestly, I am flattered. I think it's funny. And I think, you know what? I am a spooky girl. I'm going to embrace it. There are purists that don't like it, but if somebody can watch Dead Silence and encounter ventriloquism and say, hey, I'm more curious about this, and they get a book on ventriloquism and they learn, I say that's great. It's still introducing the public to ventriloquism.
Well, congratulations on your career. Congratulations on the book, 250 Years of American Ventriloquism, How Ventriloquism Influenced American Culture. April, thank you very much for doing this program. And also, thank your partner, please.
Oh, of course. And thank you for having me. Mwah.
Ventriloquist April Brucker and her partner, Mae Wilson. April is also the author of the book, 250 Years of American Ventriloquism, How Ventriloquism Influenced American Culture. You can go to our website at thestuffile.com, check out the show number for this program, which is show number 0888, and you'll find the link to April's site, plus links to either Amazon.com or Amazon.ca, where you can order her book directly. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
Giving you something to think about. This is Morning Shower Thoughts.
If you suck at playing a brass instrument, that's probably why.
Morning shower thoughts from the Stuff File program.
Got something for the mailbag? Drop Peter a line. He'd love to hear from you. Send your email to mailbag@thestufffile.com. And remember, stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H. That's mailbag@thestufffile.com. Or catch up with him on Twitter or Facebook. There's more Stuff File coming your way in just a few moments.
The Stuff File program is everywhere on several stations and on several platforms, including YouTube.
The YouTube handle is youtube.com/@PeterAnthonyHolder-StuffFile.
That's kind of long-winded, isn't it? Just go to YouTube and type out my name, Peter Anthony Holder.
On YouTube, you'll find interviews, short vertical videos, and more. There's a lot to check out.
Again, that's youtube.com/@PeterAnthonyHolder-StuffFile.
Oh, for the love of God, just go to YouTube and type in my name.
From our studios in Montreal, Canada, and going out to the rest of the world, this is the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder. It's time to crack a spine. The Stuff File presents Book Banter with Stuart Nulman. Once again, here's Peter Anthony Holder.
And Stuart, I know this is a delicate question, but are you ready to kick the bucket?
I'm not, but I do have some sad news for you, Peter.
What's that?
Well, I found out that comedian Jimmy Durante, he kicked the bucket.
Yes, he did.
He did it driving his car, lost control, and his car just hit the rail and just sailed right off.
I think we should mention just what we're talking about here.
Exactly, because Jimmy Durante actually passed away in 1980, but if you were a fan of the movie It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, that's how the movie began. When Jimmy Durante as Smiler Grogan drove his car off the freeway and managed to got thrown out of the car, and a group of people heard his serial-comic confession about something about $350,000 in a suitcase. Yes, and it's about the movie It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. In August of 1962, 4 months into the shooting of the movie, director Stanley Kramer had this to say about it. He said, "I found out that comedy is a very grim business. Very serious, and watching somebody who's dealt with comedy sweat out a piece of timing to make a laugh trigger is beyond anything I'd known in drama. It really is. It's miserable. There's suffering, perspiring, everything." Whether Kramer said the above out of a sense of amazement or frustration, we don't know. You know, Kramer was best known as a producer-director of some of the best dramas ever committed to film, such as High Noon, The Defiant Ones, On the Beach, Inherit the Wind, and Judgment at Nuremberg, before he dived headfirst with his rookie venture into comedy that was Mad World. And after reading James Curtis's excellent behind-the-scenes account of the making of Mad World, I can readily understand why he chose the phrase "comedy is a grim business" as its title. James Curtis, whose previous books were magnum opus biographies of such movie legends as W.C. Fields, Spencer Tracy, and Buster Keaton, the latter two were part of the Mad World cast, uses his expertise and thorough research to come up with the story of the making of an epic movie that has become a comedy classic and a massive exercise in excess and frustration at the same time. Everything is thoroughly examined regarding the production of this film, which is a madcap rat race that ropes in a growing number of unsuspecting people who frantically make their way along the highways of Southern California to find a suitcase that belonged to a dying old-time crook named Smiler Grogan, which was filled with $350,000 in cash. Simple enough premise, but for Kramer it was one big headache from start to finish, and reading what he went through, you could readily believe that it was a miracle the picture got completed just like that. Like, for example, he experienced erratic shooting schedules with the all-star lead cast, especially with Sid Caesar, whose scenes had to be done first because he had to leave for New York in order to appear on Broadway in Neil Simon's comedy Little Me. Then there was a time where Kramer had to go back to United Artists several times for more money, especially because of the innovative aerial photography methods that were pioneered by veteran stunt pilot Paul Mance, which helped the film go way over schedule and way over budget. Now, if that wasn't enough, there were Kramer's constant battles with the studio over the movie's nearly 4-hour running time and the constant scene cutting that had to be done in order to pare it down to an acceptable 3 hours or less. The movie, It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, was a success. It recouped its cost. It was a success on home video, both on VHS and DVD, and there were afterwards, 30 years after the fact, there were screenings that took place with deleted scenes included in a new director's cut. But it's hard to imagine that if this exercise in shooting a comedy film epic that gained cult status and recouped its costs ended up as a major box office flop, it would have destroyed United Artists 17 years before Michael Cimino's Western epic Heaven's Gate accomplished that dubious feat. Besides examining every aspect of the making of the movie, the book has plenty of very interesting behind-the-scenes trivia and fun facts. Like, for example, if you remember the digging scene at the mythical Santa Rosita Park, well, in between takes, the comedian cast members tried to outdo each other when it came to getting laughs. But it was Jonathan Winter's original improv comedy stylings that won everyone on the set. That means on-screen talent and behind-the-camera people. You know the final scene with the fire chief telling everyone one at a time, one at a time? That role was originally going to go to Harold Lloyd, but it ended up going to Sterling Holloway, who's best known as the voice of Winnie the Pooh. And finally, getting back to Jimmy Durante as Smiler Grogan, after filming a scene for 2 days on the side of a highway in 100-degree plus heat, when he finished filming, he got up, dusted himself off, and said, "Now there is a death scene. Yes, sir. How about that? Who needs one of them method Dramamine coaches?"
You know, you mentioned earlier the canon that is Stanley Kramer with all of his films, and it's easy to forget any one of them because he has made so many of them. But you did leave out one that is near and dear to my heart, Ship of Fools.
Ah, which was Vivian Lee's final movie.
Exactly.
Wasn't as heralded as some of his previous works, but yeah, it should belong into that Stanley Kramer canon. Finally, comedy is a grim business. It's a fascinating study of all the blood, toil, tears, and sweat that went into the making of an epic motion picture that involved a type of performance art that is much harder than dying. And against all odds and uphill battles, Stanley Kramer managed to gather some of the greatest comedy talents of that period, as well as one of the greatest actors from Hollywood's golden age, and came up with a modern version of slapstick comedy that has stood the test of time. I'll tell you, it was certainly worth the trouble and all the car crashes, wreckages, and overall insanity that went with it, not to mention that suitcase filled with $350,000 in cash. And that's in 1963 dollars, don't forget.
Exactly. You know, one of the things that I find absolutely amazing with the film is the fact that there are just so many stars in that movie. And I don't think there's ever been a film before or since that has had so many top tier stars in it. And I would like to think that this film could be remade, but I think it should be by one particular director and all of the stars that are in today's world, but they would have to work for scale, and a major portion of the box office should go to some sort of charity. I think Steven Spielberg should direct it.
You know, I think he would be the one who could handle a movie of that epic scale and an epic lineup of talent. He would probably be able to do it. But don't forget, he tried comedy with 1941.
Yeah, but he was young.
And yeah, he's got a little bit more experience now.
Absolutely. And I think that if they were to all do it for scale, have every star in it, give a portion of the box office, if not a major portion of the box office, to some sort of charity, it would be a feather in its cap for Hollywood. It would be an amazing goodwill.
Yeah, and one thing they like what Kramer did, you should have the top comedy stars of the day have the lead roles or middle-sized roles, and have the legends do cameos.
Exactly. Anyways, this book is?
It's called Comedy is a Grim Business, The Making of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World by James Curtis, published by Emmarac Editions, and it's $53.
And what do you suggest in this genre?
I recommend, and I mentioned it earlier, I think you should read James Curtis's 3 epic biographies, the ones he did of W.C. Fields, Spencer Tracy, and Buster Keaton. They are terrific, and it sort of sets the gold standard when it comes to the Hollywood biography genre. Just amazing. And you learn a lot of new stuff about these 3 people that you probably didn't read in previous books about them. So I recommend those 3.
And how can one find you?
Well, you won't see me lying in the desert in the Southern California heat off a highway near Santa Rosita. But you can find me in the pages of the Montreal Times, mtltimes.ca, or my blog, stuartnulmansgrapevine.wordpress.com.
Thank you very much, Stu.
Oh, you're welcome, Peter. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to rescue Sid Caesar and Edie Adams. They locked themselves in a cellar at a hardware store. So if you excuse me, I want to make sure they don't blow the place up.
Stuart Nulman with another edition of Book Banter here on the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
The Stuff File.
And we're just about out of racetrack on this edition of the Stuff File program. But, boys and girls, it's that moment you've all been waiting for. It's time now for the Idiot of the Day.
And now it's time for the strange things adults do. This Stuff File presents the Idiot of the Day.
In the UK, a couple have been forced to tear down their secret 500-pound house after telling the council they were building a specialist stallion semen horse lab. The home has been completely flattened 12 years after the couple got planning permission for a horse semen collection lab, but built a house instead. A planning inspector ruled that the unauthorized house at Valentine Stables in Great Abington, Cambridgeshire, must be knocked down last May. So, basically, the council said nay. It has now been razed to the ground after 3 months of demolition work. I guess the couple thought the difference between house and horse was just one little letter. At least they weren't trying to build a ballroom. I mean, I have to ask, why, oh why, would you think you can pull one over on the council stating that you're building a stallion semen horse lab when you instead were building a spacious house? One reason, and one reason only. You're an idiot!
Gee, I'm only a kid, but even I know you're an idiot.
And that's it for this edition of the Stuff File program number 0888. Hope you enjoyed it. The website is thestufffile.com, and once again, stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H, where you'll find information and links on all of our guests by going to the weekly Stuff File page. Just look for the corresponding program number, and once again, that's 0888. Email me at peter@thestufffile.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Spoutable, Mastodon, and Blue Sky as PA Holder. Check us out on patreon.com, where you can become a patron of the program. Hope to see you back here for our next show on the air, online, or as a download. We're coming to you from everywhere, including over the air on stations like
World FM New Zealand,
WNRHLP-FM Newport Richey, Florida,
KZZHLP-FM Eureka, California,
WFNULP St. Paul, Minnesota,
CKUW-FM Winnipeg, Manitoba,
CFMU Hamilton, Ontario,
CKLU Sudbury, Ontario,
Local 107.3 FM St. John, New Brunswick,
CHSR Fredericton, New Brunswick.
Plus, streaming on any streaming service your little heart desires. That's it. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder, a presentation of Flying Fish Communications. I'm Peter's lifelong manservant, Sir Dudley Pidley Havisham Sedgwick Smythe. Peter is such an anal retentive host that it's almost amusing watching him rearrange his desk mid-broadcast. It's like witnessing a martinet trying to polish a ghost.